The internet is currently flooded with claims that Phil Mickelson has been completely banned from seeing his grandchildren. If you follow golf closely, you know how quickly these wild family stories spread online. But the actual situation behind closed doors is far more serious than a petty argument over weekend visits. The six-time major champion recently vanished from the LIV Golf spotlight, citing a sudden and severe family health crisis. This forced retreat was not a simple schedule tweak. It was a complete withdrawal from the public eye, leaving fans completely in the dark about his true intentions. When a player of his caliber suddenly stops showing up without a clear physical injury, it creates immediate questions about what is really going on at home. The fake stories about grandchildren are just noise designed to get clicks. The real truth involves a much deeper fracture that has been quietly expanding for years, threatening his legacy. The silence from his camp is actually hiding a much darker reality about his personal life. We are going to cut through the fake rumors and look at the verified facts of his recent disappearances. We will uncover the exact events that pushed his family to the limit, separating fact from pure fiction. I believe we must stop falling for fake drama and focus on the real facts, so hit subscribe if you want the actual truth. Do you agree that golf media has completely lost its mind lately? To finally understand why he really stepped away from the game he loves, you first have to look at the one specific person who completely changed his entire perspective on life. Finding the real reason requires looking at a terrifying moment from over 2 decades ago. To understand the current silence, we have to look at the person at the center of it, his son, Evan. Born in 2003, Evan is now in his early 20s. This simple fact completely destroys the wild internet rumors about grandchildren. After all, a 20-year-old is simply not navigating a custody battle over infants. The real dynamic between father and son is much more complex. It is rooted in a hospital room where everything almost went terribly wrong. Back in 2003, the birth of his youngest child turned into a severe medical emergency. Evan stopped breathing for 7 agonizing minutes. For any parent, those minutes feel like an eternity. For a man whose entire identity was wrapped up in winning golf tournaments, it was a brutal wake-up call. Sitting by the incubator, watching his newborn fight for his life, the leaderboard at the US Open suddenly meant absolutely nothing. The sheer terror of losing his child stripped away the ego and the arrogance that had defined his career up to that point. Surviving that nightmare rewired his brain, creating a fragile pledge he would later struggle to keep. Phil made a silent promise right then. He swore to prioritize his family over the endless pursuit of major championships. For a while, it seemed like he actually meant it. He became more present. He showed up at school events. He tried to be the dad his son needed after such a traumatic start to life. But the golf world is a demanding master, and the temptation to chase history is a powerful drug. The transition from a devoted, terrified father back to a relentless competitor would eventually create a massive fracture in his household. The pressure of the PGA Tour schedule constantly pulled him away. Long flights, endless practice rounds, and the mental exhaustion of competing at the highest level meant he was often physically present but mentally absent. Evan grew up in the shadow of a living legend, but also in the shadow of a man who was frequently chasing the next big payday or the next green jacket. This underlying tension laid the groundwork for the massive controversies that would erupt years later, testing that fragile pledge to its absolute breaking point. When those controversies finally exploded into the public eye, the fallout threatened to destroy everything. To understand the sheer scale of what is happening behind closed doors right now, you have to look at the public image the family spent 2 decades building. For years, Phil and his wife were the picture-perfect couple of professional golf. When you watched the Sunday broadcasts, you saw the matching outfits. You saw the supportive smiles in the gallery. You saw the seemingly unbreakable bond that made them a staple of the sport. Fans loved them because they represented the ideal balance of elite athletic achievement and grounded family values. Behind those Sunday gallery smiles, a completely different reality was building behind closed doors. Being married to a 6-time major champion is not a normal life. It requires a level of sacrifice that most people cannot even comprehend. While Phil was flying private, playing in pro-ams, and chasing history across the globe, his wife was the one holding the actual foundation together. She was managing the household, raising the kids, handling the business ventures, and dealing with the endless media scrutiny. The public only saw the victories and the trophy presentations. They did not see the empty chairs at the dinner table. They did not see the missed anniversaries or the weekends spent alone while he was grinding out a practice round 3 states away. This unspoken resentment was a slow build, but it was about to receive a massive accelerant. The pressure cooker of their lifestyle was only magnified by his massive financial ambitions outside the ropes. He was not just a golfer, he was a businessman with his hands in real estate and high-stakes investments. The same aggressive mentality that made him a magician with a wedge also made him take massive, reckless swings in his business life. And as any golfer knows, when you try to hit a shot you do not have the club for, you end up in the worst trouble. Blurring those lines didn't just risk his bank account, it started to risk his home. The whispers about his high-stakes gambling had been circulating in clubhouse hallways for years. For a long time, it was just background noise. It was the accepted eccentricity of a guy who loved the action. But as the stakes got higher and the amounts got larger, the tolerance for that behavior started to wear thin. The people closest to him began to see that the thrill of the gamble was no longer just a harmless hobby. It was becoming a compulsion that demanded more and more of his time, his energy, and his focus. The man who was supposed to be prioritizing his family after that terrifying hospital room in 2003 was now chasing a different kind of rush entirely. Those clubhouse whispers would eventually turn into a deafening roar that shattered the fragile peace. We are talking about millions of dollars riding on the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, and the Masters. When you have that kind of money on the line, your brain does not just focus on hitting a fairway. It is constantly calculating odds and dealing with the emotional swings of massive parlays. The contrast between sinking a 10-foot putt for $1 million and worrying about a $200,000 football bet is psychological whiplash. The man supposed to be prioritizing his family was now mentally checked out, living in a world of spreadsheets. This erosion of trust would soon lead to a public humiliation no family could recover from. At the same time, a massive storm was brewing over the future of professional golf itself. The PGA Tour was facing an existential threat, and the players were being forced to pick sides. Phil, despite his legendary status and his age, felt undervalued by the current leadership. He believed his contributions to the game, his draw, and his legacy entitled him to a different level of respect and financial reward. The ego that had driven him to win majors was now driving him toward a decision that would alienate him from his peers, his fans, and most importantly, his own family. The LIV Golf whispers were turning into concrete offers. The money being thrown around was astronomical, enough to change generational wealth in a single afternoon. Signing that paper would trigger a chain reaction that no amount of money could fix. The decision to jump ship was a declaration of war against the institution that made him a billionaire. And when you declare war, you must prepare for collateral damage. In this case, that damage was the people waiting at home. Late-night phone calls, secret meetings, and paranoia about leaks created pure toxicity inside the house. The foundation of trust built over decades was eroded by months of secretive negotiations. The media leak that exposed his private comments was the match that lit the dynamite. Suddenly, every private frustration and harsh word about his peers was broadcast to the world. The worst part was the casual mention of his massive gambling losses and the callous way he discussed his peers' financial struggles. When those audio recordings hit the internet, it became a front-page scandal. Sponsors panicked. Fans turned on him. Inside his house, the person dealing with the immediate fallout was the woman who had stood by him through every high and low. The public explosion forced a private reckoning that would change their marital status forever. Here is the actual truth about the family fracture that the internet gets wrong. The real crisis was not about grandchildren. The real crisis was the complete and total breakdown of his marriage in 2021. Following the disastrous audio leak and his abrupt departure to LIV Golf, his wife Amy officially filed for separation. This was not a minor spat. This was a formal, legal separation that sent a shockwave through the golf world. For the first time in decades, the picture-perfect image was shattered. Amy, who had endured the gambling, the absences, and the constant media circus, finally reached her absolute limit. The betrayal of leaving the PGA Tour, combined with the sheer embarrassment of the leaked audio, made the home environment completely unlivable. She packed her bags and took the kids, creating a physical and emotional distance Phil had never experienced. The media camped outside their driveway, while the kids dealt with the fallout at school. The emotional toll on Amy was immense, watching her husband's reputation be destroyed in real time while shielding the children from the chaos. Formal separation proved the damage went far deeper than just a few bad headlines. The separation was a massive wake-up call. It was the ultimate consequence of a lifetime of prioritizing the game, the money, and the action over the people who actually mattered. For a man who used to say that his family was his greatest achievement, seeing them walk out the door was a devastating blow to his ego and his heart. He had spent 20 years telling the world how much he loved his wife and kids, but his actions had finally contradicted his words. The legal paperwork was just the physical manifestation of a trust that had been completely broken. Living apart from his family forced him to confront the massive void in his personal life. But the story does not end with a permanent divorce. In a twist that surprised many insiders, Phil and Amy eventually reconciled. They decided to try and repair the massive damage they had sustained. Amy publicly stated that she was standing by him with unwavering love, choosing to work through the immense pain rather than walk away permanently. This reconciliation showed a level of forgiveness that is incredibly rare, but it also highlighted just how fragile their current situation really is. They were back together, but the scars from 2021 were still very much visible. The trust was rebuilt, but it was like a broken bone that heals thicker at the fracture point. It is stronger in some ways, but it will always ache when the weather changes. This fragile piece is exactly why the recent family health matter is so significant. When Phil withdrew from LIV Golf, citing an unspecified health issue, the golf world assumed it was a physical injury. After all, he is in his 50s. But those close to the situation know it was not about a bad back. It was about the mental and emotional toll of keeping this fragile family unit intact. The stress of managing his public image and ensuring his marriage stayed on the rails required him to step away entirely. Stepping away from the tour was not a physical necessity, it was a desperate move. He needed to be at home. He needed to be present. He needed to prove, once again, that he was prioritizing his family over his career. The LIV Golf schedule, with its constant travel and global demands, was pulling him away right when his household needed him the most. The flights to Saudi Arabia, the massive time zone changes, and the sheer exhaustion of the global tour were directly conflicting with his need to be a present husband. By withdrawing, he was making a massive financial and professional sacrifice to be the husband and father his family needed. Such a sacrifice shows just how close the family came to a final breakup. The isolation did not stop at leaving the professional tour. It expanded to his local community. Reports surfaced that he was effectively pushed out of his beloved home course, the Farms Golf Club in New Jersey. For a guy who spent decades building his legacy there, losing access to his sanctuary is a massive blow. Club members distanced themselves, making his presence unwelcome. He cannot play on the LIV Tour without scrutiny, and he cannot even visit his local club without feeling peer judgment. The golf world, once his playground, has become a minefield of cold shoulders. Losing his sanctuary on the ground left him with nowhere to hide from his actions. This leaves him with only one true refuge: his home. The house in Rancho Santa Fe and the family inside it is now his entire world. The golf trophies in the hallway are just dusty reminders of a past life. The real focus is on maintaining the peace, keeping his wife happy, and staying connected to his son. The fake stories about grandchildren are just a distraction from this very real, very heavy reality. He is a man who has won almost everything there is to win in golf, only to realize that the biggest challenge of his life cannot be solved with a perfect swing or a lucky bounce. The real drama isn't about who he can't see, it's about who he almost lost. He is currently playing the most important round of his life, and there are no mulligans left. Every word he says, every place he goes, and every decision he makes is weighed against the stability of his marriage. The six-time major champion is now just a husband trying to scramble for par in his personal life, hoping he can hold on to the only legacy that truly matters. His final fight is not for another green jacket, but for his family at home. When you look at the complete picture, the narrative shifts. The internet wants you to believe there is a petty feud over infants. The reality is a painful struggle for redemption. Phil pushed his family to the absolute brink with his gambling, ego, and pursuit of money. He lost his standing on the PGA Tour, his clubhouse reputation, and his spot at his local club. But he did not lose his wife and son. Right now, he is doing everything to ensure he never loses them. The family health matter is just the latest chapter of a man trying to fix his past mistakes. It is a reminder that no matter how many trophies you win, your family is the only thing that matters when the lights go out. Phil's real fight is for his family, not another major. What do you think is the hardest part of his current situation? Let me know below and subscribe for more real golf truth.